Brilliant. Evening. Thank you for attending the Welfare Forum. It's been an interesting year, to say the least, in terms of everything that's been going on. But as most of you that have been involved in these roles for a number of years, what I like to try and do is run these forums once every 2 years as such, just to try and give you guys updates, sort of keep in touch with you, show my face, and hopefully just give you a few reminders of tips and ideas that can be done during these winter months as club welfare officers. So I think I recognise most of the people on the call, but for those that don't know, my name's Andy Wheeler. I'm the County Welfare Officer, and I got told the other week that I've been doing this now for over 10 years. So time flies when you're having fun, apparently. Also on the call is Jess Ward from the Cricket Board. So some of you will know Jess from multiple emails and WhatsApp messages that have been coming out from the board this year. Jess is the South and West Club Development Officer. So we're both here this evening to answer any questions that you might have. In terms of questions, the way we're hoping to work tonight is, if you have a question, on your screen somewhere there is an option of the chat room. So if you can find that and then post a question in there, at certain points through this forum, we'll stop for a question section, and Jess will read out those questions that are posted, and I will answer them. If you have any follow-up questions, feel free to post in the chat, or when we've done those, there's a short opportunity for you to unmute yourself and ask a question, either a follow-up question or a question you've just thought of. Then we'll move on to other bits, and at the end we'll do a Q&A as well for any follow-up questions. So normally when I do these things, and people that have attended them in the past, where I'm stood in front of you in a clubhouse somewhere, I don't mind questions being asked throughout. Unfortunately, with Zoom calls like this, it's just a bit easier to have it on the chat room. So if I could ask you to do it that way, that would be great. So overview of what we're looking to cover this evening. I'm going to give you a few updates from safeguarding world. We'll touch on COVID, talk about my favourite subject, policies and procedures, the online DBS process, some courses, and the new ECB referral process as well. So that's the agenda for this evening, and as I say, we will have question sections through that, so please post any questions in the chat room. So in terms of safeguarding updates, first of all, big thank you. Talking to a number of my colleagues across the country, they've seen a huge number of cases and complaints as well around COVID, whereas in Worcestershire that number has dropped. And I know people say, well, there was less cricket played. Yes, there was, but actually, when you compare 2019 amount of cricket to number of cases compared to 2020 amount of cricket number of cases, there was a significant drop off in number of cases. And I know, talking to the leagues as well, there seem to be less issues within league cricket as well. So a big thank you to you guys and all your players and committee and parents and everyone else involved in all of your clubs, for getting the game on and just playing the game over the last few months, which I think, to be honest, cricket was just very keen to sort of get out in the sun and play. My experience of football is that everyone's been keen to get out and start kicking each other. But yeah, that's a different conversation altogether. In terms of ECB structure, those that you have been around for a number of years will remember when ECB had sort of one or two people within safeguarding team, and it was actually only 3 years ago that there was 3 members of staff within the ECB safeguarding team. As of today, there are 11 members of staff now working for ECB within the safeguarding team alone. So the impact of that and the support that we now get as a county to be able to pass on to you as club welfare officers is hugely increasing. It has meant that cases are being investigated and dealt with a lot quicker. And it also means that there's a number of projects and systems that are in the pipeline that will be coming out that will hopefully make your life and my life a lot simpler in terms of a knowledge base and knowing where the data is on individuals and such like. Which moves me on to safe hands management system. Some of you may or may not have had an email from Jess or Elsa with regards to the safe hands management system. This is a new ECB system which is looking to bring together all of the data on every volunteer that works within your club. So when you log in, you'll be able to see that you as club welfare officer is there with your dates of the various courses and such like. So it's a one-stop shop in effect for the old tracking table that most of you have probably had on Excel or Word document for a number of years. So it's an online system. It does get updated once DBSs are updated and any other courses. So it's going to be a lot simpler for club welfare officers, for county welfare, to be able to go in and just see where everyone's at within your club and update and such like. So more if you have had the email from Jess and Elsa, please reply to it. If you haven't, it will have gone to the Clubmark main contact, I believe, Jess. She's nodding, so yeah, I'll take that as yes. Yeah. So it will have gone to the Clubmark main contact. If that's not you, check with the person that could be to get them to reply. But further information to all clubs on this will be coming out hopefully in January in the new year. So please be on the lookout for that, and I think it will be a huge benefit to us all. In terms of referrals, I have now put a new slide in later on referrals, just to give you a heads up. There is a new form for referrals, but I'll run through that in a bit. So in terms of those updates, Jess, has any questions arrived just yet?
No, nothing in the chat box.
Okay. Any initial questions on those areas? Brilliant. The first one's always the quietest, which is, I think, a good thing. So moving on to everyone's favourite subject of the last few months. You haven't been able to do anything without COVID having some impact on it. As I say, a big thank you. When I've been talking to counterparts around the country, there have been some real issues, and COVID has caused some major issues in terms of adult to adult arguments, issues regarding juniors as well. Whereas, in Worcestershire, there's not been as many, I've certainly not had that many. Now, you might tell me suddenly that you had a lot of issues with members and such like, but from my experience, not many came through to me. So, a thank you for that. And as I say, whilst we can't know what's going to happen, to be honest, on the 3rd of December yet, let alone in April, May, the noises coming out are obviously, with the vaccine potentially being around by then, with us having a lot more learning and taking that from this season just gone, the noises that I'm hearing on the grapevine are that cricket potentially could be around all season next year. Now, what that looks like in terms of changing rooms and running lines for the batters and hand sanitizer breaks, etc., I can't say yet. But it is looking likely that we potentially could have a full season in place. So in terms of that, do keep an eye out on the Cricket Board website. Do keep an eye out for the WhatsApp messages, the emails that come out from the Cricket Board, and just be ready and be prepared for an April start of the season, which is what we hope. and on that, I do want to give praise to Jess, to Craig, to Elsa Marie, for the amount of communication they've got out during the summer. A few people have said they've had too much information, and they've been hearing from them almost every other day. I actually think that's a good thing, because I would rather hear moans that people are hearing too much information than not enough. And I certainly think Worcestershire benefited from that constant communication, in terms of one being good to go when the call came from ECB to say that cricket could restart, but also when it did restart, there were less issues. So I think a huge thanks to Craig, Jess, and Elsa Marie, for the work that they did around that. Another question that I've been asked a few times from club welfare officers is, does the club welfare officer have to be the COVID lead for the club? The answer is no. The answer, the simple answer is the COVID lead should be the person within the club that potentially has the most experience of dealing with COVID through work, or is the person that is reading up on all the documents, risk assessments, etc. That should be the COVID lead within the club. So it shouldn't just fall on the club welfare officer that because they're club welfare officer, they are the COVID lead. But what I would say to club welfare officers is be involved in the conversations, especially where the changing rooms and hand sanitizer and net sessions, etc., are being discussed. You guys as club welfare officers should be involved in those discussions. Some of you may have seen that one-to-one sessions can continue through this lockdown. Just to reiterate, that cannot happen at a cricket club, because a cricket club is classed as a private ground. So one-to-ones can't happen at a cricket ground, but they can happen at public spaces. Although ECBCA last week, I think it was, did recommend that one-to-one sessions don't take place outdoors, because November for an hour outdoors of cricket is not the most fun, but also the facilities won't be quite as good for a high quality one-to-one session. So in saying that, a few clubs have approached me around online sessions for junior teams and such like, and recommendations and thoughts and such like. I try and keep it very simple, and that is have 2 adults on the call, minimum of 2 adults, ideally club committee members, and don't record the session. And if you are sending a link out to a Zoom meeting or a Teams meeting or whatever it is, send it to the parents' email address. So the parents are they're the ones logging in, so they are giving permission for their child to sit on that call. So 3 tips: have more than 2 or more adults, ideally committee members, on the call. Don't record it, and send the links to the parents, not the children. Hopefully that answers a couple of questions that came in around online sessions. So policies and procedures, as I mentioned, cricket potentially will restart in April, hopefully, and it's just a good time now with nets not happening, junior winter indoor sessions not happening, cricket not being played. It's a good time to review policies and procedures within your club. So there's a few ones there just to highlight. A few newer ones that maybe if you came to the forum a couple of years ago, you might not have seen. So there's sun-safe practices and whistleblowing have now been added to the portfolio of documents. E-safety, social media is always changing. So I think since, I believe it was beginning of, or April 2018, I think was the date, WhatsApp changed to, you had to be 16 or older to have an account with WhatsApp. So if you've got any WhatsApp groups with under 16s on, those children shouldn't be on there anymore. So social media, e-safety, e-communication is constantly changing. So I would say if you've got a a policy on e-safety or social media, make sure it's up to date. And I would look to review that possibly every year, if not every 2 years, as a maximum time period. But do read through those and just check they're up to date. The link at the bottom to the ECB safeguarding resources, there are templates on there, and there's guidelines and other bits as well. So check against those, and check against your policy. So yes, there's a list of the policies and procedures that you should be looking at. So any questions on the chat, Jess?
We've just got one which just says, will others in club have access? I believe this is to Safe Hands Management System. Just so that you're aware, sort of at the moment it's for club mark clubs. And once they've basically been through the system, then it'll start to be clubs with junior sections and so on and so on. So it will be further down the line accessible to everyone.
Great, thank you. Any other questions?
There's another one which says, do their clubs store their procedures on shared forums?
So recommended in terms of policies and procedures is somebody within the club will take the lead on it. Usually that's the club welfare officer, unfortunately. But what I would do is I would look to try and publish them on websites. So turn them into PDF documents, publish them on your website, whether that's Play Cricket or you've got a separate website. Some clubs will put them into a PDF single booklet with them all in, and email that to all their members, or post on Twitter or whatever. So lots of different ways. But yes, the policies procedures shouldn't be just sat in a folder on your computer or printed off and in a folder on a shelf somewhere. They should be published online and shared. As I say, there's lots of all the policies, guidelines and templates are on the ECB website. But if you are looking for just something to give you a head start, the wonderful world of Google, other search engines are available. But if you type into Google cricket club transportation policy, there will be a number that come up. Find the one that's closest relevant to your club, and then obviously copy, paste into Word document and format it to how it meets your needs as a club, and then save it and use it and pass it on to the committee for their sign off, etc. So hopefully that's answered that one. Anything else?
We've also got, does the Safe Hands Policy Handbook contain updated policies as we use this as our guide? Are you suggesting this can get out of date, so we should update the handbook often?
So in terms of the handbook that's given to you every 3 years, it is up to date at point of print. Now generally what the ECB don't do is do a print run of Safe Hands in normally it's around October time when it's refreshed. They don't then update the policies for another year. So generally the policies are updated to the point where they go to print on the Safe Hands folder. So if you've got a Safe Hands folder that is from 1, 2, 3, 4 years up, 4 years ago when you may have last done the course, then have a look on the ECB website and just cross-reference, because a Safe Hands folder that you used 2 years ago, the wording could have changed. And especially e-communication, social media, that is changing all the time. So look on the ECB website. The latest versions of those templates are there, and they will be the updated versions that you will have in your Safe Hands folder. Anything else, Jess?
That is all.
Okay. If anyone wants to unmute and ask a question, feel free. Okay, I'll take the silence as a good thing and move on to the next section. So next section is DBSs. Hopefully you were all aware that back in April, DBSs were went online and went to a video-based verification, which meant that all bar, I think 6 of us in the county, everyone else's access stopped, I'm afraid. Now the reason for that is that to have DBS and the government sign off on cricket allowing DBS verifications to continue, it had to be reduced down to a select few people in the county. So unfortunately, club welfare officers, your access to the DBS system was removed for that. What you will have noticed is that that's happened again, and that starts on the 1st of November and runs through till February. At the moment, we don't know when, well, sorry, we don't know if in February it will be reopened and club welfare officers will start verifying again, or whether that will carry on. That obviously depends on the state of the country in terms of lockdowns and tiered systems and such like. So what that means is that at the moment, virtual checks are being carried out by myself, by Jess, by Elsa, and by Craig. And I'll show the next slide where, you know, that process. But just a reminder, the roles listed there are the ones that do need DBSs. So club welfare officers and assistants, coaches, umpires, scorers, junior managers, junior coordinators, volunteers within the junior section, any first aiders, physios, medics, masseuses, etc. They need to have DBS checks, and also all open age captains and vice captains. So having a conversation at the moment with a couple of clubs who are looking for 16 and 17-year-olds to become captains for various teams. And you know, my response from a safeguarding point of view towards that is, if they're 16 or 17, they can still be DBS checked, and they have to be if they are taking on that role. The challenge is trying to get ID for 16, 17-year-olds from experience, but it can be done. So if a 16, 17-year-old is becoming a captain, they do need a DBS check. However, because that person is still classified as a child, somebody else on that team who is over 18 needs to have a cricket DBS, and they are loco parentis for that team. So that is the safeguarding situation in terms of 16, 17-year-olds who are becoming captains, is they do need a DBS, but you need to have somebody else in the team in every game, in every game that is DBS checked, and they take loco parentis for any under 18s in that team. Okay, so please do be aware of that, and do make sure that, you know, at AGMs that are probably happening over the next few months, etc., with changes in personnel, changes in roles, just make sure that your DBS checks are all up to date, please. So in terms of the process, ideally, please email either myself, Jess, or Elsa. And if either you or the individual can email us, what we need is their full name, date of birth, postcode. If you're sending it, obviously the email for the person that we need to check, and also their role within the club. So if you can send those five pieces of information to us, we will then instigate their application, which sends an email direct to them. They click on the link, they complete the online application form and put the 3 forms of ID in that they need to get, you know, to prove who they are. They then email photos of those 3 forms of ID back to whoever's instigated them. So either myself, Jess, Elsa, or Craig. We will then set up a video call with them where they will show us the 3 forms of ID in real time. We will sign it off online and then press complete on that. As long as that all goes through, then we will delete the email with the documents on. So from a GDPR point of view, we will not keep copies of those documents that will be deleted. We can do it whilst the video is taking place, and we can show them that that video is being, that email is being deleted. And obviously we won't be recording the video session. So that's the process. And at the moment, we are still looking at 5 to 7 days for the certificate to be sent back with the check having been done. So that is the process between now and at least February. So if you have got people that need checking, probably after an AGM, you might have 3 or 4 new captains that need doing. Drop an email to one of us. Please don't send it to all 3 at the same time, because otherwise, if all 3 of us kick off, it causes chaos of the system in terms of duplicate applications. So please send it to one of us. We will then process it, work with that individual to get them signed off, and then it gets sent back to them. Just a reminder on DBS's the actual certificate. DBS do the check, and they then send the certificate direct to the individual. There are times when Atlantic Data will ask for that DBS to be sent back to them or to the ECB. 2 reasons for that. One is if there is no content on there, so those that have seen DBS's, it will say non-recorded in all the boxes. The reason they're being asked to send it back is they're just doing a sense check on the system to make sure it's all working and the right people are getting it. If there is content, nobody knows what that content is apart from DBS and the individual that then receives the certificate. But ECB and Atlantic Data, who handle DBSs for ECB, are notified that there is content on the DBS. Now, when I say content, that could be anything from somebody's jumped on a train without a ticket and a conductor's having a bad day and has fined that person. That fine will potentially appear on the DBS check, right the way through to being a mass murderer or a serial sexual offender. That will appear on there as well. So ECB are notified that there's content on the DBS, but they're not notified what it is. So they then write to the individual to say, please can you send us a copy so we can see what the content is and just make a determination as to whether that you are suitable to be involved in cricket. If the person doesn't respond and doesn't reply after 3 reminders, they are suspended from all cricket. And the individual gets the email, I get a copy of the email at the same time, and I pick the phone up to you as club welfare officer to say, do you know this individual? She is now suspended from all forms of cricket. I had 2 of those this summer, one on a Friday and one on a Saturday morning. And I had to phone the clubs and say, do you know this person? Yes, they're playing tomorrow or today. And I said, unfortunately, no, they're not, because they hadn't responded to sending their DBS check back, their DBS certificate back, sorry. So it does happen, and it does stop people from being involved in the game until it's then sorted. So whether there's content on, whether there isn't, if somebody's asked to send it back, please send it back. Normal years, we are looking at about 1 a fortnight, sometimes 2 a fortnight of people being suspended because they haven't they haven't sent their DBS check back, their certificate back. So it is frequent, and I think if we can try and get the message out that if you are asked to send it back, please send it back as soon as possible. It does make life a lot easier, and it means that you're not getting a phone call on a Saturday morning at 10 o'clock when you're possibly trying to get a team together already, and I say that 10th player that you just managed to get to play, no, they can't, and you've then got to phone them and say, no, you can't play, and it's a couple of weeks down the line before it's all sorted. So please do keep on top of people with those. Any questions on those 2 topics?
We have. Is there a way we could have access to DBS system to check existing records, e.g. automatic annual updates?
Unfortunately, at the moment, no. So if you have a query around somebody in the club, then please send us their name and date of birth. Probably with those, send them to me. and because I've got a slightly different level of access to Jess and Elsa in terms of DBS. So if you want to send me an email with the names and the dates of birth of the people that you just want to check up on, then I will run a quick check on them. Most of the time I'll send an email back and say expired or doesn't expire until 2022, etc. If there is a flag against that person, then I'd probably pick the phone up and have a conversation with you. But generally the email will come back with expired or you've got 2 years left or something along those lines. And next.
There aren't any more at the moment.
No. Anyone like to unmute and ask a question?
Andy, I'm this under 18 captain or vice captain role. I think it's quite interesting, isn't it? And you said loco parentis.
Yes.
So I'm just thinking that through. We've appointed a Sunday team vice captain who's in year 11. He might not even be 16 when the season starts. So I don't know. I'll have to check his date of birth. But
okay. So with that, when he can't do a DBS until he turns 16.
Right.
So if you can check his date of birth, once he turns 16, then he can then get a DBS. What I would say is, if the captain is going to be away and he is going to be captain, then you need to make sure there is a senior member within that team with a cricket DBS who can then be loco parentis.
Yeah, that's helpful. Yeah, I thought it would be.
Plan ahead. Tell the main captain that he's not allowed to have a holiday next summer. He's not allowed to get injured. He's not allowed to be out of form. But if he can sort of give you heads up that he is going to be away, etc., then you just need to put in somebody that's got a cricket DBS.
Or my view is we might be better to have an over 18 who's also a vice captain.
Yeah,
so we've actually got two vice captains for that team, yes. So we've got covered both bases.
Yeah, that makes sense. Just what I would say is if you can see the scenario where those the captain, the vice captain are away, so leaving the 16-year-old vice captain, then just plan that somebody else then has to step in. But it's basically around just checking ahead and making sure that you've got people in place to do it. And as I say,
thank you, Andy.
With the turnaround being sort of 5 to 7 days, I think telling you on the Sunday that they're not available the following Sunday would make it difficult. If they tell you on the Wednesday 10 days before, then potentially you can line up somebody, get the DBS done on the Wednesday or the Thursday. If they send the, hopefully by then you'll have access again. By doing it on the Wednesday or the Thursday, by the following Sunday, the DBS should be back. So they can then be that person.
Thank you, that's helpful.
Okay,
thank you.
Great. Anthony, did you have a question? Sorry, you seem muted, Anthony. Let's see if I can. Anthony, I can't hear you. So do you want to type it into the chat function and Jess can then read it out, please? Oh, the joys of technology.
He says his audio isn't working.
Okay.
He says, don't worry.
Okay. If there's no other questions, I'll move on. Okay. So moving on. So a quick update on courses. Safeguarding and Protecting Children, SPC. That's the the entry level safeguarding course that you will that coaches do, and maybe some of you guys have done. That's the face-to-face one that's run by UK Coaching. As you can imagine, that's on hold at the moment, so it's not currently available. What is available is the Safeguarding Young Cricketers, so SYC, which that is available. That's online. Takes about 40 to 60 minutes if you have a rough idea of what you know about in safeguarding. To register for that course, you need to email Jess or Elsa and ask for a link. So if there's people in your club, and I would say it is good practice to get as many people doing that course as possible. So I do, and I'm saying this is good practice. It's not a give, it's not that they have to, but your captains, vice captains, it's good for them to do it, and committee members as well, just to give them an understanding of safeguarding within the club. So if you do want individual links, Jess, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it's name, email address that you need.
That's all it is, yeah.
So if you can send a list to Jess or Elsa with a list of the names of people in the club that need to do it and their email addresses, then the link is sent to them for them to do it. As I say, it's about 40 to 60 minutes, depending on how much time you take watching the videos, reading it, taking it on board, and such like. So I would highly recommend that course for everyone, and obviously that's a 3-year renewal, as all three of those courses are. So if you know that yours is coming to an end, then it's a good time to renew at the moment. The final one, Safe Hands for Club Welfare Officers. I think looking at the list, one or two of you may have done the recent virtual courses of these. So basically what's happened from lockdown 1, the ECB stopped the face-to-face Safe Hands workshops, which probably most of you have done the training with me running it over the last few years. It was put on hold, and through the summer and now potentially going to be going on into the new year, is ECB nationally have run virtual Safe Hands courses. So if you know that your certificate is coming to the end of its 3 years as a club welfare officer, drop me an email and I will get you put onto the list, and an invite will then be sent from ECB for you to then pick which course works for you, time and date, and then you log on, and it's about a 2 to 2.5 hour online virtual course that you then do, and your certificate then lasts through again. So as I say, if you need to do, because you're new to the role, or you need to renew, drop me an email and we can sort that out. All other courses in terms of first aid, coaching qualifications, umpiring, scoring, etc. If you want further information on those, please contact Jess or Elsa. The email that I'm going to send out tomorrow with various links and information on also includes some free online training courses that you can then send on to your parents and your players around umpiring and scoring, the basics of umpiring and scoring, so that they can be up to speed and help out as and when needed. So moving on, as I mentioned, there is a new referral system. Basically, it's a new referral form that ECB are trying to implement in terms of information that's being passed on to them. I get asked regularly across the year, sort of, what do I have to bring to you? What's the threshold for raising it with the county welfare officer, etc. I've put it there. If you're ever in doubt and you're not sure, phone me. Drop me an email, give me a call. I am always happy to have a conversation with anyone, even if it's a parent has made made a poor choice comment, shall we say, towards an umpiring decision while sat on the boundary, have a conversation with me about it. Anything at all, give me a call, we can have a chat and such like. To put it into context, I've had a case in the last couple of years where there was a disagreement between a parent and a 15-year-old player at the presentation evening on the patio outside the club. The disagreement was because this parent's daughter had gone out with the 15-year-old, both 15 years old. They'd gone out, they'd separated, and the parent didn't like a comment that the 15-year-old made. 99 times out of 100, that could be dealt with within the club. That came to me as county welfare officer. I ended up spending 42 hours on that case alone, and it involved 85 documents having to be redacted and checked because of data requests coming in from different people. And I ended up having to spend 2 hours on the phone to the solicitors about it on Christmas Eve. So something as simple as a disagreement between an adult and a child at the club caused all of that. I'll call it discontent with my family that I was having to spend 2 hours on a phone call on Christmas Eve. But the hours having to spend going through 85 documents was very long. And so what I say with that, and the learning from that to the club, was follow your policies and procedures, because the reason it got so silly was they didn't follow their complaints procedure, and they tried to sort it out with conversations and having chats with people and everything else. That caused so many issues with all the parties involved because it hadn't been done properly. And that then caused issues going into an appeals and such like process. So what I would say is, you have a complaints procedure. Please, with anything like that, do follow it. And if you're not sure, give me a call and I can help you through it. As I say, anything bigger than those sort of things, there is the new ECB referral form, which I'll flash up on screen shortly, but I will send a copy out on my email tomorrow to everyone. With larger, sort of, I'll say, worse cases than what I've just described. So, for example, if you suddenly got a phone call to say one of your players had been arrested for indecent images of children, something along those lines, phone me first. We can talk it through. As I've put there, please don't panic. I'm here to support you. I'm here to support the club. And so, with something like that, if it happens, give me a call. We'll talk it through. I will then ask you to fill that referral form in and send it through to me. But I will start the process with ECB around how we're going to deal with that person. So that will be the process. I'll need you to fill that referral form in with as much information as possible and send through to me, but we can still start the process in the background in terms of getting that person suspended from cricket and such like. So pick the phone up, give me a call, and we can talk through that. But just a reminder, this graphic here, you guys have an issue come into you. As I say, if it is something that is happening there and now, or it's an ongoing concern around a child, you have every right to phone the police. You have every right to phone Children's Services. All I would ask is, if you do that, please let me know, because I can then support you guys with it, and I can contact the police and ECB, and we can pick it up from there. So yeah, please do let me know if you've gone direct to police, LADO, Children's Services, etc. But it will come through to me. I then send it through to the ECB safeguarding team, who I work with regularly. One of their case officers will pick it up. They'll run the investigation, and when the case has been resolved, So if it has gone to the Crown Prosecution Service, so court, or the police have said no further action, or whatever's happened at that level, the safeguarding team will then pass the file over to the referral management group, the RMG. That group is independent from ECB. So it is, I will say now, I sit on that along with fellow other county welfare officers from across the country, and we meet once a month, sometimes twice a month, and hear the cases that are there, and then a decision is made by the RMG as to that individual's involvement in cricket going forward. Just to put you at ease, if it is somebody in Worcestershire, I don't sit on the panel. I recuse myself because there will be a conflict somewhere within that. But the conditions that the RMG could hand out to an individual that reaches them is actually, no, they've served their time, they can return to playing, spectating and regulated activity, or it could be they're banned from cricket for life, and it could be anything in between. So there's a number of individuals in Worcestershire that have conditions on them at the moment. I know them, and I work with the club welfare officer at their club to make sure their conditions are being met. So if that is the case, then I will have that conversation with you around their conditions. Now, you as a club have every right to say to me, Andy, those conditions that you're asking us to do, we cannot meet. We just cannot achieve what you're asking us to do for that person. That is not a problem. It's absolutely fine for you as a club to say, no, we can't achieve that. In which case I will work with ECB and the individual to find a club that they can, those conditions can be achieved at. But you don't have to accept somebody with conditions just because they've approached you to be a playing member or get involved in the club. So that's the reporting structure. As I say, the new referral form is there. I will send it. I know that's a bit blurred, so apologies for that, but I will send that to you, so you've got a copy. And if you phone me and say this has happened, and I say, can you do a referral form? If you say I haven't got one, I can still send you a copy as soon as possible. So this form now is what needs to be submitted to ECB. Yes, I can make phone calls, but that is the form that will need to be sent in. So any queries on it, just have a chat with me about it. So that draws a line under what I was going to tell you. There are the contact details for myself, Elsa, Jess and Craig. A couple of the other links as well. But before I get on to any questions that people might have, and before people start dropping off, a big thank you. The role you do as club welfare officer, within your cricket club, it can be a thankless task. I absolutely appreciate that. It can feel at times though you're banging your head against a brick wall. I completely understand that. But from myself, from ECB Safeguarding, from the Worcestershire Cricket Board, we do thank you for the work you do. It goes unnoticed, and people will say, well, we've never had a case, we've never had an incident at the club, so why do we need a welfare officer? Well, probably the reason that you've not had a case or incident at the club is because of the welfare officer. And the number of times that there is an incident or an issue, the majority of those happen at clubs where safeguarding isn't part of the culture, or the club welfare officer has left, or the club welfare officer isn't as active as the majority of you guys are. That's where issues occur. Issues generally don't occur in well-run clubs that are on top of safeguarding. Yes, they do occasionally, because bad people will do bad things. But ultimately, if you've got everything in place that generally you all have, it does mean that there are less cases and less incidents. So a huge thank you for all the work you do. As I say, I'm happy to pick up some more questions that may have popped into the chat. I'm going to stay on here for a little while as well. So if you want to stay on and ask me questions, or you've got my phone number, you've got my email address, feel free to phone me, email me anytime, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. So thank you very much. Jess, are there any questions?
No, there are not.
Okay, so unless anyone wants to unmute and ask any questions, I'll just reiterate that I'll send an email out tomorrow. On that email will be a copy of these slides. It will be a link to a YouTube version of this this forum, and so you can listen to my dulcet tones again. There will be the referral form, and there will be the various links that I talked about to the various online volunteer courses for umpiring and scoring as well attached. So thank you again. As I say, if you've got questions to ask and you don't say it to the whole group, please feel free to stay on. If not, I'm going to say, I know it's the 19th of November, but Merry Christmas. Have a very happy New Year. Hopefully,
ho ho ho.
Yeah, hopefully you will be able to spend it with loved ones, and if not, then people you like. But have a great Christmas and winter, and hopefully I will, well, in other capacities other than welfare, I will hopefully see you again in the near future. But all take care, stay safe. Thank you very much. Jess, do you want to stop the recording?